more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people
on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
Then Shapiro leaves Stacey Plasket and Eric Swalwell speechless in a heated congressional hearing. Watch as Shapiro dismantles their weak arguments, exposes their hypocrisy, and delivers a masterclass in facts and logic. This wasn't just a debate, it was a total takedown.
Mr. Shapiro, you talked about white privilege, and just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But
we can talk about how that manifests, because that's
I'm also interested in what you just said now, is that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would. This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
really,
yeah. But from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean, you're talking about the alt-right. Again, I was the #1 target of anti-Semitic harassment from the alt-right last year. So I'm more than happy to do all that. And I think there's one more distinction that has to be made. When we talk about cases like Taylor's, they're horrific, and the administration is siding with Taylor. Okay, the administration is doing the right thing by Taylor, or trying to do the right thing by Taylor, as they should be. And I think that we need to make a distinction between cases where the administration is actively participating in the suppression of speech and cases in which the administration is trying to do the right thing in order to punish people for application of crime.
Project 2025. It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to get any censorship from me. So I just wanted to know, from your perspective, I think it would help us understand, on just like a scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they
if
can
they
do
were
so for
willing to
hundreds of
pay-
millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level. I'm
just
fully
asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage, what about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I'm perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew, that's
sure
true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to.
Now, what we just witnessed in this explosive hearing was nothing short of historic. Ben Shapiro, a man who has built his career on cold, hard facts and razor-sharp logic, went head-to-head with two of the loudest Democrat voices in Congress, Stacey Plasket and Eric Swalwell. And let me tell you, this wasn't just a debate. This was a total annihilation. Shapiro versus Stacey Plasket. First, let's talk about Stacey Plasket. She has made a name for herself as one of the most aggressive defenders of the Democrat agenda. Whether it's censorship, weaponizing government against political opponents, or spreading half-truths to protect her party, Plasket has been right there on the front lines. In this hearing, she tried the same old tactics: emotional pleas, personal attacks, and empty talking points. But Ben Shapiro wasn't buying it. He didn't let her hide behind slogans or spin. He confronted her with facts. Every single claim she made, Shapiro had the receipts. When Plasket tried to paint conservatives as dangerous for simply questioning government overreach, Shapiro flipped the script and asked the real question: who is truly dangerous? The Americans who want accountability, or the politicians who use power to silence dissent? You could see it in her body language. She didn't have an answer. Shapiro left her scrambling. Shapiro versus Eric Swalwell. And then, of course, came Eric Swalwell. If there's one Democrat who has turned himself into a walking punchline, it's Swalwell. From his embarrassing ties to a Chinese spy, to his failed presidential run that barely lasted a heartbeat, Swalwell has been a symbol of everything wrong with the political elite: arrogant, dishonest, and utterly incompetent. Instead of owning up to his failures, Swalwell did what he always does. He tried to distract, deflect, and throw mud. But Ben Shapiro wasn't having it. He called out Swalwell's hypocrisy point by point. When Swalwell accused conservatives of being extremists, Shapiro reminded him of his own radical record and the fact that Swalwell himself has openly pushed to limit Americans' Second Amendment rights. It was a beautiful moment of accountability. The look on Swalwell's face said it all. He wasn't prepared to face someone who actually knew the facts and wasn't afraid to use them. Why this hearing mattered. But friends, this wasn't just about Shapiro embarrassing Plasket and Swalwell. This was about exposing the bigger picture. This was about showing the American people that the Democrats' house of cards is built on lies, fear, and manipulation. For too long, people like Plasket and Swalwell have gotten away with shouting down their opponents, bullying the media into silence, and pretending that their failures don't exist. But today, in this hearing, all of that came crashing down. Shapiro showed exactly why they fear truth-tellers. Because when facts are on the table, the left doesn't stand a chance. And let's be honest, that's why they try to silence voices like Shapiro's, like yours, like mine. That's why big tech censors conservatives. That's why the corporate media smears patriots as dangerous. They know that if Americans actually hear the truth, their entire grip on power collapses. A call to action. So here's what we need to do. We need to keep shining that light. We need to share videos like this. We need to hold these politicians accountable and never let them forget that they work for us, the American people, not the other way around. This hearing was a reminder that facts still matter. Courage still matters. And when someone like Ben Shapiro steps up and refuses to back down, it exposes the weakness of the entire radical left. So if you're ready to stand for truth, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join us here at Congress Breaking News. Together, we will keep exposing the lies, holding the elites accountable, and making sure the voices of patriots are never silenced. This is more than just politics. This is about the future of America. And it's about time we take our country back.